Welcome to the Armored Combat Escalation Service podcast. Today is Monday, September 29th, 2014, and I am your host, Brandon, also known as Cattra Kell. And with me today, as of right now, we only have a couple of people here. We have Typhus, Mech Warrior 21, Tychron, and Velcor. Was it correct on the last one? All right, good. I'm bad at names. I'm terrible. So let's dive into some unit news real quick. First of all, as always, the ACES faction is now set up in MWO. If you do not have your unit tags, please find someone who does. Anyone can send invites to people. So if you do not, let someone know. I'll probably be changing the permissions probably in November so that only certain people can send invites. But for right now, pretty much anyone at this moment can invite people. Let's go down. Not as many as awards as last week, but we still had a number of awards from September 22nd to now. The award Spartan Lance has gone to Von Kessel, Panzer Shriek, Tychron, Satex, Adam O, Mecha Kaiju, and Janestown. Heavy Unobtainium to Tychron. Assault Silver to Tychron. 666 award to The Black Knight. Light Unobtainium to Silly Hats. Medium Gold to What is 42. And our first Trashborn goes to Rix. So congratulations all you guys. Continue sending, of course, all your award ideas. And hopefully we'll have some of those specialty lance killing awards going in fairly soon. That should be some fun. I know personally a couple people already have Lord of Lords, so hopefully we'll see some of that being completed soon. We just need the icons for them, and then we'll be able to start handing them out, as always. Typhus, I'm going to ask you real quick. I didn't see anything on there, but has there been any new members or promotions this week?
Not to my knowledge, no.
All right, I didn't think so. I didn't see anything on there. But of course, as always, make sure you check out the applicant section and make sure you are posting those +1s, -1s voting for people that you play with, and make sure to try to get some of the recruits and stuff like that into your games so you can kind of check them out, see what they're like, that sort of thing. That's very important. So we have upcoming events. Of course, we have our Monday practice, which is at 8 p.m. Eastern. We have our Thursday Pacific practice, which is at 7 p.m. PST, at Pacific Standard Time. Of course, we have our Run Hot or Die 4v4 tourney, which I just want to say, excellent games there last week. Against, what was it, Clan Wolf Delta Galaxy. It was an amazing game. It was 4-1 for us, so that's really nice. Get us some points. This week, who are we up against?
I believe we are up against EK Cow. Not familiar with them.
No, I don't know who that is.
But I wonder if there's any recordings on YouTube of anything like that. See kind of a reconnaissance type thing, maybe. But do we have a date for that yet? Or date upcoming, or when we need to do it by?
Tentatively, we have approached them to have a match on Wednesday, the week at 10 p.m. Eastern. We're waiting to get confirmation on whether or not that will work or not. Especially considering we've got so many events going on. What with Run Hot or Die, and then NovaCat coming up, and Merrick also starting. So we're getting busy.
Very busy. That's a really good transition point. Speak of the Merrick War, Season 4, we are confirmed in. I think the first meeting was last night. Tychron, I believe you were there. I don't know who else. Typhus, were you able to make it, or?
No.
I was working, sadly, so I wasn't there either. But Tychron has a nice write-up of what was posted there. So, as pirates, we are doing 8v8. Certain rules apply to us. Apparently, our round 1 matchup is against the Scorpions, the Antares Scorpions, Antares.
Antares.
I don't give a shit. They're going down. So we have to get our match done by what, the October 6th, I believe.
Yes, we have
So
till the 6th to play the match.
See here, when is that? That is next Monday. So next week we have until then. So, in the Merrick Civil War season, well, actually the first question should be, when's a good date for Titan's reverb?
Oh,
You're
sorry.
hot micing.
So one of the things we have to get down is a good date, because I believe Wednesday we have our Run Hot or Die. So that's going to consume that slot. The only downside is that I am working every night pretty much. I have Tuesday and Wednesday off. I'm going to be working every night other than that. So it might just be up to you guys to get something solid down. Unless we can talk to them if they want to do early or even late Wednesday night. We could do that potentially. But again, we'll need feedback from you guys to what you want to play. But anyways, as on for the rules for the 8v8, Conquest, 15 minutes, first person only, all the standard stuff, best of 5. Apparently there's some special settings there for clan mechs. Techtronic, do you know what that's about?
Yes. The ruling on clan tech usage in the 8v8 series is that we can have up to 4 clan mechs in use. Of those 4 mechs, only 2 mechs may not be available for C-Bill. So Timberwolf, Stormcrow, Warhawk, and the Adder. We could only use 2 of those if we decide to go with clan mechs. On the other side, the C-Bill purchasable clan mechs, we can have any number of them, but we are limited to 4 clan mechs overall. So we could go. So if we had the tonnage to play with, we could run 4 direwolves if we really wanted to. But I'm looking at the weight limits for each game match for this first round, and I don't think that's going to happen. So our enemy is safe on that regard.
Okay, that's good. I was about to say, our game 1's what, 375, and then 475 for game 2, and 575 for game 3. So I mean, it is going up, but it's not going up a whole lot. It's 100 tons each one, 200 tons total. A little bit of leeway, but not enough to, as you said, drop a whole lot of direwolves. And I don't think I would want to take a direwolf in comp play. I mean, it is a heavy hitter. It can do some damage, but I mean, it's slow. It'll slow you guys down. So anyway, enough of that. Enough of rambling about Merrick. Let's move on to the Clan Novacat 6v6 tournament. Do we have a date, time, and anything for that? And what's the scoop on that?
It's still going to be 8 p.m. Eastern on the 4th. The only change, the only thing I think is important is Sanctus is not going to be with us until the 3rd, the day after, the day before. So he's not going to be able to be a part of the theory crafting or, talk about how we're going to win these matches. So if anybody else here is interested in playing on the 4th, from 8 p.m. Eastern to about midnight Saturday, you're more than welcome to do so. It's up to you guys.
Well, I'm already going to be there, and I know you are, and Iron's in, and Finring's in. Sinister also said he's in. So yeah, if we can get a couple extra, even if you aren't sure about it, this might be the first time you play comp, but you're more than welcome to join up. It's all for fun. We won't razz you too hard.
I mean, let's be honest. Until you actually get into the comp scene, start doing some of the comp stuff, it is an entirely different type of game.
Yes.
It's one of those things that unless you actually play in that setting, you're not going to get better at it. Because it's a lot of hold, it's a lot of weight, it's a lot of moving, and then the fighting takes maybe a minute tops. So
yeah, patience.
It's patience, it's strats, it's that sort of thing. It's not like if you drop in the 12-man queue, or if you're dropping 10 men in the pug queue. It literally is an entire different game. So I encourage everyone, if you get the opportunity to get into one of those tournaments or get into anything in the comp scene, even if it's just for fun comp scene stuff, it's still a lot different than pug games. With that being said, let's transition into our general talk. So last week we talked about medium mechs. This week, let's talk a little bit about heavy mechs. And I think heavy mechs are a little bit different because they're so versatile. Every single inner sphere heavy mech anyways has, I want to say, a small role to play. Like, for example, the Jaeger mech. It's definitely a very support mech. It's also a sniper and that sort of thing. But if you compare that to like the Cataphract's just pure damage DPS output. That's just what it's for. And that's two very different categories of types of mechs. So let's get right down to it. Is there any heavy mechs that are must-haves according to you guys, and why? Techtronic, go ahead.
Well, I think the number one heavy mech to have, at least for the inner sphere side right now, is definitely the Cataphracts, particularly the Cataphracts 3D. And if you spare the MC, getting the Ilya Miramets as the hero for it, those two I think are really at the top of the food chain in terms of the inner sphere inner sphere heavies. 3D, it's got those high energy mounts in the torso. It's got two ballistic, one in the torso and one in the right arm. So I've seen a number of builds with it. The jump jets on it help with the ability to get in and out and traverse terrain. You can switch a standard into it for more durability and for longevity, or you can run an XL and go with a completely DPS, high damage build out for it. The Miramets is similar. You've got high energy points, but you've got a third ballistic there. And as we've all seen, well, at least from back in closed beta, you put 3 UX 5s on there, and it basically is a chainsaw. You can rip through people very, very quickly if you've got them firing right.
Yep, I agree with that.
I completely agree. I think the Cataphract is definitely one of those must-have mechs. And I mean, for myself personally, I really like the Orion. I've taken it in comp. I think I'm one of the few people that takes it in comp and really wants it used competitively, though I know that's never going to happen. I think a heavy mech that's often neglected is the Thunderbolt. And there's some good reasons for it. It's big, it's bulky. But I think people don't see the hard points and stuff like that. Like the 5SS. I mean, 7 energy, 1 missile. That thing's just pure DPS, and you got a lot of pod space to play with in there as well. Now, would I recommend getting this for a must-have for ACES? Probably not, but it is a fun mech to look into. I think the Jaeger mech is a must-have as well. Dual 20s, dual Gauss. I mean, it's a must-have standard support snipe or support brawl or just pure damage. And really, any of the Jaeger mechs are good. But I think if you're going to get one, probably the DD, the S, and the Firebrand if you want to drop some real cash. Thoughts on that?
I would agree with you that the Thunderbolt is often unfairly neglected. The 5SS and the 9S, especially that right torso with its upper positioned energy mounts there. You put 2 PPCs or 2 large lasers, and it is a nice little poke mech right there. You can go up to a hill, just get enough over so your cockpit is over so you can see, and you can fire all day long from there with those. Same thing with the Jaeger. You've got the higher weapon mounts. Unfortunately, with the Jaeger, and one of the reasons it is not as good as some of the other heavies is those side torsos are so squishy. They are vulnerable. They are easily taken out. A lot of people run an XL in the Jaeger, so you take one of those side torsos out, they go down hard. Even if you're running a standard, you can run the AC-20 Boom Jaeger with a standard. You can run the Gauss Jaeger with a standard, but the armor is still not there for it. So it is very easy to get all those weapons stripped off of it and leave it just running around as a stick.
Anyone else?
Well, let's talk about probably one of the let's talk about two of the neglected heavy mechs, and I think you know what ones I'm talking about: the Dragon and the Quick Draw. Why do you? Well, I mean, the very reason these mechs are neglected is because both of them, I think, need XL engines to be anything effective. What would you guys say would be needed to turn these mechs into something decent or worth running? Anyways, McWare?
I think one of the things that needs to be done is that they need, in essence, they need a role to play. I meant, as you probably know, the Dragons, they are one of the few mechs aside from the Quick Draw that you can run at speed. If you're running a light comp drop, you can probably run as fast, if not faster, than some mediums can. But the problem is though that what you can put on it is limiting. I mean, the best thing you can put on it maybe triple AC2s, and that's really the point of which there's not much else you can do for a Dragon. And obviously the other main reason is that the nose and the front, it sticks out so much that even no matter how much armor you put on it, it's just going to go blown away in the wind.
Techtronic?
I would agree with Mech on the Dragon. That nose on it, it's just so easy to focus it and to rip it apart because of it. I'd like to see with the quirk system that's being implemented, maybe having that adjusted of giving it some more damage resistance in the center torso to combat that ability just to take it out, so easily because of that big nose on it. The Quick Draw, on the other hand, I just, it can run an XL, and a lot of the best builds are an XL build, and it does work fairly well with the XLs in it. Speed is definitely its key advantage. It doesn't have the armor, even when you mod it up to really be a good brawler. But if you keep it at range and play it basically as a heavier version of the Raven 3L or the Cicada 3M of firing ER large lasers or PR PPC from it, you can definitely ruin someone's day with it.
I agree. I think, yeah, hopefully with the quirk system coming in, I think they now have said, second here, I think they just posted an estimate date, October 21st or November 4th patch. Hopefully we'll see some of these things come in, and I would love to see, because yeah, definitely for light drops, I would love to have Dragons be part of it because they can keep up with those light mechs pretty easily. I mean, if you throw, I think, what is it, a 360 in there, can go with speed tweak like 100 and 107, 108, so it can keep up there with the light mechs. And I think, as I was saying, like in those really light drops, it would be really good as a harasser type mech. But again, the problem comes from everything else. So maybe with the right quirks, might become useful again, though it's hard to say because it's hard to know what sort of things are going to be applied before those come out. So let's move on to rundown overall. Let's close the topic about heavy mechs and move on to the next one. So in closing, heavy mechs must-haves: Jaeger mech, Cataphract. Gotta have them. need them, that sort of thing.
Before we move off of heavy mechs, there's one heavy mech from the Innersphere side that we haven't touched upon. The good old catapult, the first heavy mech we had in the game.
That's true.
I mean, got some really interesting builds from the all missile A1, where we've seen everything from splat cats that are completely SRM or streak SRM to the K2 with doing similar builds to the Jaeger mech on them, and even the hero that the Jester, all energy, jump jets, very maneuverable and able to put out a lot of damage, and very good with an XL engine, especially considering those side torsos are a little bit harder to hit.
I think the problem with the catapult, though, is that it can be done so much better by everything else now. There's nothing that really makes it shine like it once did. Like, I mean, let's take a look at. Well, I mean, if we wanted to go LRM boat, I mean, in all our drops, we always drop something from like a medium to a light, and then we just take the awesome instead because you can just put so much more into it. But I mean, if the proper quirks come in for the catapult, we might be using it again and using the tonnage to bump something else up instead. But I mean, the K2, you can't even really, you can't AC20 boat it much anymore. It just gets torn apart, and because it doesn't have the right armor like it used to, or I shouldn't say like it used to, but it's not effective as it once was. And the Gauss K2 got completely replaced by the Jaeger. Basically, the AC20 and the Gauss Apolts got replaced by the Jaeger mech because of those high mounted, as we mentioned earlier, those high mounted ballistic slots. So you wouldn't have to expose your entire torso, or I shouldn't say entire torso, but your whole mech up onto the ledge in order to get the shots off. And I mean, while we're talking about it, we might as well talk about the Orion. I brought it up a little bit earlier. It's one of my favorite mechs in the game. The problem, I think, comes from that CT. That CT, honestly, it's pretty big. I know they did some rework on it, but I end up losing... I take a hit on my arm, and I end up losing my side torso before I lose my arm. It's just, its hitboxes are not that great. I mean, I run either an AC-20 or a Gauss rifle in my right torso, and then I follow up with large pulse lasers on the arms. It's a good build, it's solid, does the damage, does the work. The problem is, though, it goes down way too easily, so hopefully we see some love in there for the Orion as well. Alright, now that we've talked about every single heavy mech available on MWO, or Innersphere heavy mech, because we got those now 3 clan heavies, 4 in the upcoming months, that perhaps we'll discuss at another time. But right now I want to focus a little bit more on the Innersphere stuff, mainly because that's what everyone's running competitively, except for the Summoner. I think you can run the Summoner in most places now because that is available for C-bills. But yeah, let's just focus on the Innersphere stuff for now. Again, we'll come back probably eventually and talk about the clan stuff once some balancing, once some changes go in, and once we see a little bit more what they're going to do to them. I think it's a little bit unfair to judge them right now with the way they currently are, because we know stuff is coming down to change them. So let's talk a little bit about maps. Of course, we had the new map come out recently, Mining Collective. What are you guys' thoughts on that map so far? Mechware?
That map is Jumpjet Heaven. Any mech that you have that has jump jets has a significant advantage on that map, because whether it's an ambushing, scouting, or just plain rushing. If you have jump jets on that map, you are king.
Yeah, I had some experience of that last night. It was pretty awesome. You're able to get around people because they make firing lines, and it's really easy to get past those firing lines if you have jump jets.
It's definitely a map that has verticality to it. As you said, the jump jets are invaluable on it, more so than any other map we have. Uh, the other thing is because how new it is, it's been very interesting to see that various teams and players take different approaches on when playing on it. There are a number of areas that easily turn into kill boxes, and we in Aces have done it. I've seen others do it. You start pushing forward, thinking that you've got an enemy trapped, and suddenly on either side of you, you've got 3, 4 mechs just pouring fire into you, and there's nowhere to run. There's absolutely no way to get out of it. And as Beckler has pointed out, it's very easy to get split up in. LRMs can rain on you from any direction. It it's an absolutely fun map though. It's I unlike some, I don't find very little to complain about with it.
That's actually one of the things I really like about the map is that there's so many areas where you can flank from or maneuver around and get an advantage where you might have been at a disadvantage beforehand. One place in particular that I can think of is that C3, D3, D4, C4 area, that upper middle tier plateau area. I mean, so many times have I gone, or there's been a firing line or a stalemate set up D3 to D4 in that small little gully, where instead of just moving out, people just keep trying to push through there. I mean, just a couple days ago, just the Lance Aces alone, we pushed up into C4, then into C3, and then came down on the side of them, and it split them. And I mean, there's not many other maps where you have such mobility and stuff like that, as well as cover. So movement and everything like that is actually really important, because you can get flanked and you won't know until it actually begins to happen. So yeah, I like the Mining Collective. I would like to see more maps like this. I know we have Swamp on the way, so that should be, what, another 6 months?
I think that's the time roughly for it.
I don't know. It's hard to say. Hopefully soon. I'd love to see more maps all the time. But yeah, Mining Collective, A+ map, in my opinion. Probably one of my favorite maps up there. At least in my top 3. I can say that very, very, without much conflict in that statement. So let's move on to... let's talk push strategies, specifically on Forest Colony. I've been noticing that Forest Colony, and its variants, I mean, let's talk about the main one for now. A lot of people hesitate on the push strategy, and Forest Colony, in my opinion, is one of the maps where the push strategy is very effective, and it works pretty much every single time. But I mean, for example, if you're spawning in that B2 area up on the radio tower side, and you're pushing water down through D3 by the ship, and all of a sudden, for some reason, everyone halts going around the ship when you have a ton of cover on that way, so you don't really have to worry about it. One of the things that is very important, in my opinion anyways, is the push, and you always have to keep going no matter what. If you're getting rained on LRMs and you go down, if you're still moving forward with the team, that's a good death, in my opinion. There's nothing wrong with that death there, even if you did 0 damage, because you took the blunt for someone else. And then you have to push around and then right straight into them. And that's another point I've been finding people have been getting caught in, is as soon as they see the enemy or the enemy's line, they stop and they begin to open fire there, when they should be opening fire on the go and push right into them. So I think one of the things we have to look at and keep practicing as a unit, as well in general, in both the competitive and the pug queue, is our push strats. I mean, another map that's a perfect example of this would be Frozen City, up in that Charlie 3 area. When you push over the hill, I've been noticing a lot of people hesitate a little bit at the hill to see what they're kind of pushing into. Shouldn't hesitate. You should be just going easily, just right over the hill and into them. The sooner we get into the brawl, the sooner we're going to get the win. because it's going to disorient them. They're going to try to pick targets, and we're just coming down. We already know what we want to hit. So anyone have anything on push strategies at all? Techtronic, go ahead.
Well, to start off with Forest Colony, I haven't been seeing a lot of water pushes from the far spawn in D5 lately. Most of the water pushes always seem to start from other spawn that up by 1B2, starting up on that hill area and then swinging down into water. The D5 spawn, they push, it's usually up along that C5, into B4 and through the archway, which you definitely have to push there. You cannot hesitate because it's way too easy to get caught in that little narrow, archway area part, or to get caught in the bowl behind it, where a lot of LRM boats like to set up there because they can really cover most of the map with fire. But get a solid push on someone that's stationed there, they're in trouble. And a number of players try to camp in that area, and it just doesn't work. You can't stay there. You have to get out of it. Similarly, for Frozen City, we'll see people try to go, mostly fight in that lower city area, down in the B4, C4, B5 area. And you can get some very dirty, nasty brawls going on there. But if you do not push the advantage, very easy to lose the momentum and to basically get consumed in a war of attrition.
Not only that area is very susceptible to, so for example, again, talking about the Charlie 3 area, there's been a couple times where we, as a unit, have gone into that B4 city area, brawled it out, had a very good fight and came out on top, but then they had 3 LRM boats or something like that sitting on C3, and before we could take them down, they just, because we're so weak from after the brawl, that their LRM boats just eat us alive from the C3 position on the hill. Because even though we have cover, because they're up higher, the missiles come almost at a straight down angle on top of us. So yeah, I think the B4, unless you can confirm that they're an all brawl, but even so, I think B3 is the place to fight at if you want to do brawls, especially if you're pushing. This is again assuming that you spawn on the E3 side. And not the B1. If you spawn on B1, you'll probably want to do the opposite, where you'd be fighting in like Delta 4, Delta 3. Hard to say. But yeah, I think overall the push strategy is something we need to work on, and it's definitely something we need to have a better team strategy type thing to deal with, or even perform correctly, especially in the comp scene.
I would also cite Caustic Valley as one that needs to be re-examined for push strategy. One of the main ideas that we have when playing it is to group up in that D5 area. Fortunately, a lot of times we end up kind of stalling out once we get there, and if we basically then play Ring Around the Rosie with whoever we're facing, rather than try to push right into them and hit them hard before they have a chance to really get going. And I want to say, there are times where where they are, and it's just you should just be pushing straight through that crater. You should be pushing straight over the ridge, right into them. Take the momentum in the match. Don't let them get the momentum on you instead.
Yeah, a really good plan to be used all the time, it generally works, is attack.
I mean, there's been many times where we've tried to play defensively, and I think the biggest and best example of this, I mean, we were down a player as well, was during the first engagement tournament when we got on Frozen City. I mean, they just pushed right into us and it was over at that point. Like, they just came so quickly into us. And line that we basically formed, because I think we took a couple of our LRM skirmishers. But I mean, they just got right up in our business, and our LRMs then became ineffective, and we just ended up dying. So yeah, definitely another map as well. We should try to think of a strategy for would be HPG, because I think this is a little bit of a unique map in the way that there's the whole underground area which you can hide out in. I mean, that mainly happens on Conquest more so than, but I mean, Skirmish, it does happen as well. And it's one of those things where even though there's 4 entrances, you can't really get a good push into them because the entrances are so narrow. So if a team sets up down there, it's hard to really get at them. So I think it might be important to take a look at HPG and try to think of a push strat for that. One of the ones I was thinking, because if we're dropping Skirmish, you got the two spawns, C4, C5, and just push D4 right into Echo 3 and catch that one lance that's spawned off guard. But that's the only thing I can really see right now. But yeah, no, push strategies. Any closing remarks from anyone?
Well, on HPG, the other night, I saw a very interesting new take on strategy for playing the map. Rather than push into that center arena area up onto the antenna or even underneath the antenna, the enemy actually held back. They stayed in that B4, B5 area, and the team I was on, we spent a good 5-6 minutes searching the center area, thinking they've got to be hiding here somewhere. And finally, we sent out a scout lance to try to search, the spawn area. And of course, that's where they were. And everyone tried then to push through that C4, C5 entrance. And it was a killing field. I mean, that narrow entrance, they were set up perfect firing lines and just slaughtered anyone who tried to push through that entranceway. A couple guys tried to flank through B6, and same thing there. That narrow field of fire, was crippling. So I'm wondering if that might become a new tactic on HPG. Instead of pushing into the center on assault or skirmish, holding back and trying to play out in the outskirts some more.
That could be very interesting, because I mean, that B4, B5 area is pretty open. So I mean, if we use that to our advantage, I mean, we could might be able to take a little bit of control of the situation by forcing them into us from there. So that'd be very interesting to see in a skirmish setting, or even assault setting, what goes on there. So maybe that's something we should try in a testing. One thing I did want to bring back, though, is we were talking about Forest Colony. That arc area, I think it's a lot different when you were talking 4v4, 8v8, and 12v12, because you definitely don't want to hang around in that arc open area in the 12v12. But that being said, during our Run Hot or Die match against Clan Wolf, we held there a little bit, and they pushed into us, and we had the advantage because they couldn't get one of us stayed under the arc area, and they couldn't get LRMs on us, even though they had a lock. So they had to push into us, which then they entered into basically a killing square. So maybe for smaller games like 4v4, that might actually be a viable option. But I think anything bigger than that, you're right in saying that you don't want to hold up there. You want to continue pushing, because then it just becomes clogged. You can't open fire as well because you might hit a teammate and that sort of thing. So that's actually a very good point to bring up as well. So again, with push tactics and getting practice and that sort of stuff, any closing remarks before the final for fun question? All right, so I guess no closing remarks. Excellent. So still talking on the subject of maps. Of course, we have Swamp coming up. I want to ask you guys just real quick, what type of maps would you want to see, and why? Just real quick. Techtronic, go ahead.
I would actually, and I've been saying this for a long time, I would like to see a revamp of Crimson Straits, of making a somewhat night map, but basically have a typhoon slash hurricane on it, where parts of the city are just flooded out, buildings are mangled, part of that platform's maybe collapsed down, the boat might be tipped up on its side, you know, just you have rain, you know, pouring down, sometimes intensifying like the snow does on Frozen City. You have flashes of lightning, so if you've got night vision on, you might suddenly get blinded, if while you're trying to fire on someone because a lightning strike goes right off in your face.
I would love to see weather effects and things like that. Another map I'd like to see is like a full forest map. Trees that'll cover atlases.
That could be interesting, with maybe a couple clearings or something like that for all type spaces, but mainly forest. That could be. I'd like to see that.
I mean, you have trees and everything that'll hide battle mechs, and that's cool and all, but you can still target them. Of course, you can see them through the trees. But imagine what an ECM cloud would do.
I'd also
Anyway.
like to see a bigger city map.
Yes.
Kind of got that with Mining Collective, but I would like a real cityscape, kind of like we saw in that first trailer, all years ago, when the idea of this new Mech Warrior game coming out was fresh in our minds, and we were all on the edge of our seats in anticipation. Where you've got low slung buildings that might cover you from the waist down, but you also have huge buildings that there's no jumping over these. Even if you are in a spider going at top speed, they're just huge mega skyscrapers. I think that'd be something that the community would really love to see.
Something I really would like to see is that basically just that, the big map. But I always pictured it kind of like a little bit like Manhattan, where you would have just blocks and blocks of buildings, and then in the middle you have something like Central Park with maybe, I don't know, if we're talking Conquest or something like that, maybe one of the points is set around, like, put like I don't know, let's just say hypothetically that's like the planet's diplomat's office or something like that in the center of the park, and then you got the middle point, the fifth objective point would be on that or something like that. So you kind of have to push into the park a little bit, and that would be like your open area, but everything else would just be blocks and blocks of big buildings that you wouldn't be able to go through. Yeah, very much like the MechWarrior 4 city map. That's something I'd like to see.
There was and it was one of the expansion packs. I think it was the Black Knight expansion pack for 4. There was a single player map. I believe it also translated to the multiplayer, a map like that where there was a lot of tall buildings. Center was a massive, almost Central Park area, as you describe it, where there was small hillocks that had turrets on them, and I want to say part of a crashed dropship, but I can't remember specifically.
Another thing I'd like to see is a little bit more of the map variants as well. These could be just simple changes that could change the dynamic of the map. Like, for example, one of the things that I would like to see would be, or at least I think would be interesting, would be Canyon Network Sandstorm or something like that, where if you're inside the trenches type area, you're not getting hit or distorted by the sand because it's going over or something like that. But if you're up on like the upper areas, it's just a sandstorm, and it's almost acting like the fog in Frozen City at times. Another one that I've thought of that I would like to see would be gotta find it here. I just blanked. Crimson Strait, winter Crimson Strait, frozen or something like that, where the saddle would be avalanched in or something like that, so you can't go over that way. The water would be frozen unless you're going out into like C1, E1, like the deep water type of thing. And maybe one of the middle outlet of the tunnel would be snowed in as well. So it's either a full rush through the tunnel, but then it's also directing all the fighting into the city. I think stuff like that. I would like to see a little bit more variance. I know people get kind of tired with map variants, but I still think that it brings something, a little bit of diversity to the game as well. So I think that's something they should consider and do.
In that sense, I would also like to see a return to Mordor, Terra Therma. I would really like to see a variant that basically has that center in full eruption. You know, that you cannot get into that, you know, caldera area because there's just lava spewing out, you know, boiling up. The platform is, you know, gone. And been around, and the area surrounding it has all been effective. Some of those, you know, maybe mountains are also, you know, bursting with lava, and places where you thought you could push through now have large lava rivers that act like falling into the lava in the center on the regular version of it, where yeah, you can push through it, but your legs are going to take some damage and you're going to see a heat spike because of it.
Go back to a previous subject, Merrick. We're going to need to be looking at building drop decks and practicing here real soon. When did the match have to be scheduled and finished, Cattra?
By the 6th.
Yeah, by the 6th.
That's not a long way off.
Oh,
No.
it's next Monday.
That's what I was saying. Like, perhaps, again, we have our Run Hot or Die Wednesday, but maybe if we want to do, we would have to make sure everyone get on, but right after Run Hot or Die, do our Merrick Wednesday, because I think they said Wednesday works for them, and that seems to work best for a lot of our people as well. The only problem, though, is that only gives us 2 days to get practiced up and everything like that. In a drop deck set, and that'd also be 10 games of competitive that we'd be playing in the day, but I think we could handle it if we wanted to go that route. But the problem would be that we'd be going really late, or we would be starting really early, which could affect some people.
Well, I think Wednesday would work. I kind of would like to hold off at least till maybe Friday, Saturday, just because, you know, we are starting Merrick back up. I don't know how many people are interested right now. I haven't seen a clear census from members of, you know, yes, I'm going to commit to this. So I'm really worried that it's, you know, like with a lot of our comp teams, it's like herding cats trying to get people to show up for practices. We can build drop decks, but we need to show up to, you know, practice them.
Yeah, people need to show up.
With that being said, I think we're running a little bit over time.
Well, we can close it up.
Yeah, certainly. Any final closing remarks from anybody? No? All right. So thank you everybody for listening to the ACES podcast number 2. I like to thank everyone for coming out here today, starting from the top all the way down. So we had a couple people show up. We have Shimmering Sword, Typhus, Man of Athens, MechWarrior 21, Tychron, and Veclor. So thank you guys for showing up, tuning in. Hopefully this will be on YouTube by tomorrow. I'll start getting it prepped and everything like that, and it should be up, hopefully by the morning, or at least early, 8 o'clock or so my time, so 7 o'clock Eastern. It should be up. But anyways, I have been your host, Brandon, also known as Cattra Kell, and take care, Mech Warriors.